Hi guys, today we are looking at how to structure and what goes in your introduction paragraph in your argument essay. Imagine, it's 2028, you're a lawyer on your first big case. You're defending a man who has been set up. You take your place in front of the courtroom. All eyes turn to you, each set, waiting to hear what you are about to say. A man's life is in your hands. How will you introduce your case? Now, in the case of your essay, a man's life is not actually in your hands, just your grade. So, like a good opening statement, your introduction is important. It tells us what we need to know before we can absorb your claim, which is, again, the last sentence of your introduction, and is your actual argument. See the claim lesson for more on how to structure your claim. Your introduction should include any background information important to your argument. It provides context and history. For example, let's use the argument, the media's coverage of the Watergate scandal was paramount in convincing the general public of Nixon's guilt. Take a moment to consider this claim. The media's coverage of the Watergate scandal was paramount in convincing the general public of Nixon's guilt. Perhaps you have some questions, like, what was the Watergate scandal? Or, who is Nixon? This, the general public usually has some idea, but not truly. You just know that he was the president. Answer these types of questions for your reader. Cover the history and the context. At this moment, please pause the video and pull up the attached article from history.com. From here, we're going to move on to a real-life example of an introduction. You should already have the attached article from history.com pulled up. It's called The Watergate Scandal. When you pull up the article, it should look something like this and start with a June 1972 break into the Democratic, so on and so forth. This is not the introduction. This is more of an abstract of what the article is about. So we're going to move on to what the introduction says. This is what the introduction paragraph to the article looks like. Essentially, it goes on to trace how in the early morning in 1972, burglars were arrested in connection to President Nixon's re-election campaign. What I really want you guys to focus on, however, is the last sentence of this introduction. This last sentence says, "The Watergate scandal changed American politics forever, leading many Americans to question their leaders and to think more critically about the presidency." So what are you hearing here? What is it that we are seeing? Yep, you guessed it. This is the claim of the article. I'm going to read it one more time. The Watergate scandal changed American politics forever, leading many Americans to question their leaders and to think more critically about the presidency. So now, much like the article, you have a claim. Where do you go now? How do you know what to put in your introduction paragraph? So let's go back and look at the article once more. We will look at what the editors decided to put in their introductory paragraph for background information and context for the reader. The first thing we need to look at is when the article was written, which was in 2009. So to give us some context, the first thing that the editors decide to put into this introduction is when this occurred, which was early morning on June 17th, 1972. The next thing that is pointed out is what happened and why it happened. Burglars were arrested for wiretapping phones and stealing documents in connection to Nixon's re-election campaign. Lastly, the editors point out the result. Washington Post reporters revealed Nixon's role in the conspiracy, and as a result, Nixon resigned. In this case, the editors gave pieces of the puzzle to the readers to be able to build the context in the history and therefore understand what the argument or the claim was of the article. The editors provided us with background information and context such as what happened, the media's role, and context to understand Americans' reactions. So what you should do next is go back and look at your introduction and revise to reflect the history, context, and background information that is important to understand to be able to absorb your claim of your argument essay.